Welcome, citizens of Douglas County. Good morning. It's February the 5th, 2024. The work session for the Douglas County Board of Commissioners will come to order. Clerk, please take the roll for the record.
Yes, sir. Vice Chair, District 3, Commissioner Terenia Carthen. She's absent. District 1, Commissioner Ricky Dobbs.
Present.
District 4, Commissioner Mark Alcaraz.
Present.
Chairman Phil Miller.
I'm here. Commissioners, are there any changes to be made to the agenda?
No, Chairman.
Being none, the agenda stands as approved. As a reminder, each commissioner will have 3 minutes to make remarks and 2 minutes for rebuttal. Clerk, do we have anyone to sign up for public comment?
We did not.
Amazing. Next on our agenda is the approval of meeting minutes. Commissioners, please review the minutes before tomorrow's meeting. We have 2 proclamations for tomorrow. One proclamation, February the 12th, 2024, as Georgia Day in Douglas County. And 2, proclaiming the month of February 2024 as Black History Month in Douglas County. We will now begin with the agenda items. Clerk, please begin with what's on the agenda.
Yes, sir. We will have a public hearing tomorrow to consider amending the Douglas County Code of Ordinances regarding Chapter 8, Emergency Medical Service and Ambulance Service Providers, and Chapter 10, Section 21, Malfunctioning Fire Alarms, Fee Therefore, and a new section regarding fees for service. And Chief Allen is here if you have any questions for him before tomorrow.
Morning, Chief.
Good morning. So basically, this is the fire department did a review of the county ordinances, and we're looking at Chapter 8, which is the Emergency Medical Service and Ambulance Service Providers, and Chapter 10, Chapter 10, Section 21, which is malfunction of fire alarms and fees therefore, and other fees for services. And we're prepared to discuss that at the hearing tomorrow.
Okay. Any change? What's the changes in the fees?
There's going to be several changes as far as amendments for the normal malfunction for fees. It's several of them, basically.
Okay.
So moving from $50 to $100 for false alarms, moving from $75 to $150 for subsequent false alarms thereafter, and any excess of five in a calendar month, moving from $100 to $200. We're also proposing to add fees for building construction review, civil plans, fire alarm plans, hood inspections, sprinkler plan reviews, field inspections, consultations, burn permits, commercial burn permits, tank permits, and some additional testing and special event inspections. And those fees are going to range anywhere from $0 to $100. For the building constructions, you're looking at anywhere from $125 for the first review to $150 to $175 subsequent for second and third review on building constructions greater than 12,000. And then civil plans are going from $125 up to $150 for the third review.
Okay.
And I'll have our inspectors here to answer any specific questions if needed.
Okay. Any questions?
No, Chairman.
Mr. Dobbs?
No questions.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is number 7, authorization to accept the fiscal year 24 AG 2316.1 aging subcontract Aging Subgrant Contract Amendment in the amount of $637,837.77 from the Atlanta Regional Commission with an in-kind match of $39,406,053 to be funded through the Senior Services Department budget, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. Dr. Gilchrist.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. How are you? Commissioner Alvarez. Good morning. Yes, this is just the first amendment to our agent services contract with the Atlanta Regional Commission, and the funds are used to help cover the cost for our home and community-based services.
Okay. Questions, comments? Mr. Dobbs?
No questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 8, approval of a sewer easement across Douglas County property located at 881 Factory Shoals Road as requested by the Douglas County Water and Sewer Authority, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. James Worthington.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This morning I'm presenting a request from a developer known as T5 to approve a sewer easement that will cross county-owned property near the intersection of Factory Shoals Road and Douglas Hill Road in Commission District 2. The easement's for a sewer line that will connect the new development into the existing sewer system. The easement's a total of 60 feet wide, it's nearly 400 feet long, and of the 60 feet of width, only about 20 to 30 feet will remain as a permanent easement. It varies depending on the depth of the pipe. So the remainder will just be temporary easement during construction. Once this is completed, the easement will be donated to WSA by T5. I've been working with the developer to agree to the following conditions. Payment of $6,525 to Douglas County. The developer will stub out a sewer line on the county property for future use. He'll replace any asphalt that has to be removed from the site. They'll install sod on the western 200 feet of the easement and seed and straw the remainder. If approved, these conditions will be drawn out on their construction plans and enforced by the engineering department. With that, I'm requesting approval of the easement. Any questions?
Questions, comments? Mr. Dobbs, you okay?
Yes, sir, I'm okay.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 9, authorization to approve an agreement with GEMA to participate in the statewide mutual aid agreement with no impact to the budget, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. Jason Milholland.
Good morning. This is every 4 years the state asks us to sign a new statewide mutual aid agreement in order to facilitate helping one jurisdiction to another. It's one of the requirements of FEMA to be reimbursed. If somebody helps us, if another county came and helped and spent, a couple $100,000 helping us, they may want to get their money back. This makes that eligible for funding through that. Without that, that money is not eligible for reimbursement under a presidential declaration. But also, and other times, it just allows, it's the legal framework for us to help one another in large-scale emergencies when the emergency or disaster outstrips our capabilities, that we can bring in people and assist one another. It also allows us to, by doing a statewide agreement, we don't have to have a agreement with every county in the, every separate jurisdictional agreements. It's one agreement that covers the entire state.
Okay. Questions? Mr. Dobbs?
No questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Number 10, authorization to accept Medicare's increase in upper payment limit for patient transport, and authorization to accept supplemental payment of $88,794.25 to release the state share of $30,287.72 to the Department of Community Health, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. Chief Allen.
Once again, good morning. So this is the UPL payment that the fire department normally receives to get these monies back, to supplement monies back. So we have to have this agreement signed so we can turn over the $30,000 so we can get the $88,000 sent to us as far as our fire fund, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Good. Mr. Dobbs?
Chief Allen, can you explain, what that was with I heard, the Medicare increase? What is that exactly?
No, sir, I don't think, did I say anything about Medicare? I don't think Medicare is,
I think he heard accept the Medicare's increase.
okay. You want to explain that?
Oh, sure can. So annually, they'll reevaluate the reimbursement that Medicare and Medicaid does for transports, and then basically when they decide that they should have given us an increase in fee, then that money is disseminated a couple of times per year. So that's what it is.
Okay,
Oh, okay, that makes sense, thank you.
You're welcome.
thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 11, approval of a professional services contract with Cambridge Computers in the amount of $24,326 for network assessment project to be funded by the Information Services Department budget, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. Alex Betancourt.
Good morning, Chairman,
Morning.
Commissioners. This is a contract with one of our vendors that does our network assessments. Every year, we need to do a security assessment to scan for vulnerabilities and make sure we're operating efficiently. We partner with a third party to keep ourselves accountable and make sure we're doing best practices and making sure that our network is secure.
Questions? Mr. Dobbs?
No questions on my end.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 12, ratification of the ACCG recommended contribution to the defined benefits plan previously approved to the corrected amount of $9,759,848, which is a difference of $10,000 due to a typographical error. Rosalind Miller.
Yes, this item was before you at your last voting session. So we made the payment. However, in error, we listed the wrong amount. It was less by 10,000. So this is just to correct the record.
Okay. Good. Mr. Dobbs?
I'm good to go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 13, policy regarding attorney's fees incurred related to claims against employees. And Michael Coleman will take this one.
We have had several discussions over the past several months regarding payment of legal fees, and this is a draft of a proposed policy in that regard. The policy is done pursuant to OCGA 45-9-21A, which authorizes counties and other governmental entities to adopt policies to provide for the defense of criminal, civil, quasi-criminal actions. The proposed policy set forth in this draft covers most types of claims. With respect to criminal claims, it generally provides that it will be handled in the way that it is currently handled, and that is, we provide a defense through insurance primarily. We provide the deductible for the insurance. We make sure that the claim is covered. We coordinate with the insurance counsel to make sure that all the facts have been marshaled properly, et cetera. With respect to criminal claims, as well as quasi-criminal, ethical, and other claims, there is a proposed reimbursement policy which provides for the reimbursement of fees and expenses up to a maximum of $50,000 upon any event that the public official is fully exonerated. And again, this is a draft, so it's for the board to look at it, engage, and have comments and make changes. But based upon discussions, this is kind of the direction that the policy has taken now. It provides that the board does have authority in that instance to, on a case-by-case basis, increase those amounts of reimbursement, or to pay it at different times, so there's some authority there. But the basic number is the 50,000 limit upon total exoneration. There are other conditions set forth. This policy will supersede and replace any other policy that's previously existed. And that's a high-level summary. I'd like to stop now and see if there are questions or comments or the will of the board.
I have a question. If somebody is charged with an offense and they're totally exonerated, are you saying that $50,000 would be the limit?
Well, that's up to the board. I think the policy sets that, but the board certainly has the right to increase that amount and should consider and whether or not that's the right amount, should think about it and talk about it.
Okay. I think I've misunderstood it a little bit. I understand why we would put a limit as to how much we would pay out as far as attorney fees are concerned, but if somebody is totally exonerated, then I think that number would be a lot more. I think that if you're innocent and a court says that you're innocent, I think that we should, I'm sure Douglas County can't afford an unlimited number, but if you're totally exonerated, I think we should try to consider paying at least a very large part of it.
I would not disagree with that at all, and I would say that in the event that someone is totally exonerated, that means they have spent a substantial amount of time and cost trying to get exonerated. So they probably have expenses and costs substantially higher than that number. So I certainly would not disagree with that sentiment. I'd like to point out that I don't know that I mentioned earlier, but the policy only applies when someone is acting within the scope of their duties and jobs.
Right.
That it only applies to that extent.
Okay.
Outside of that, then we don't have any responsibility there.
Okay. Any other comments?
Is this, are we redoing this policy just to clean it up a little bit? Am I understanding that correctly? Because I do know that there were some things in discussion that of how we pay for these fees and how much we pay for these fees really was never, I guess you could say, structured properly. Is that correct?
I think, yes, I think that's an accurate description.
Okay. That's the only questions I had, Chairman, because Attorney Coleman answered everything else earlier.
Commissioner Dobbs?
Yes, the one question I was gonna ask was in reference to the scope, of the job, and thank you, Attorney Coleman, for answering that. The additional question I have is that cap at $50,000, is it, well, you did say that was, if they're completely exonerated. But is it, well, I guess it is, it's up to us as the board to kind of determine what that number is. Is that correct?
I think the chairman spoke to that. I think, his view is that that number is a little low, and the board certainly can determine the appropriate number that it wishes to insert there, and I would encourage consideration of that. I would not disagree with the fact that that is probably, in the event of total exoneration, that's probably a little low.
Okay, so then would the best course of action would be to say, if we keep it at the 50,000 and then say also like in an additional piece, if the amounts that's expended exceeds that cap, it is to be considered by the board to figure out, instead of setting a super high number, we can just figure out if we'll pay like maybe a portion or maybe even all of it, and just kind of to be deemed as such after. Is that a good recommendation or no?
I think, as I understood, and I couldn't hear everything, couldn't understand everything you said, Commissioner, but I'll try to respond based on what I did hear. I think, as I understood, the discussion and reference by the chairman is that there should be some thought to whether or not the policy that's proposed before adopted should be changed to reflect a higher number. I think that's what I understood to be the comment that the chair made, that we should consider a higher number than $50,000 as the limit in this total exoneration scenario.
Okay, yeah, and so, I guess my question was that, would it be recommended, like what from you, based off of, like your recommendation on a course to take, would it be to keep it at the 50K and then to say that the board will vote on it like on a case-by-case basis if that number exceeds the 50K? Or should we set a higher number and then let that be it?
I would say probably, you probably ought to consider a higher number, but you still have the flexibility to increase that later. But I do think that it would make sense for you to consider a higher number. Because keep in mind, total exoneration generally comes after months and months of litigation, motions, it could even be a trial. Who knows? So I think a higher limit probably is appropriate, and with the flexibility to consider some other amount if necessary later, but a higher limit initially I think would be the recommendation I would make.
Okay, and then my last question is, how would we be able to determine, depending upon whatever the case-by-case basis is, how will we be able to determine if the charges or accusations or anything like that is within the scope of the job? Will you as the attorney, have the right to know, or will we be in the blind in some cases?
I think we would have, it's a fact-by-fact determination, case-by-case determination based upon the facts of each case. And I think we would have to look at what the allegations are and whether they pertain to the person's job. And in most cases, I think that would be apparent, and we'd be able to make that determination. There could be some close cases where the board will have to make a call with the advice from counsel about whether or not it's in pursuant to their job. But I think generally, I would say the board would make that determination based on advice of counsel, of the county attorney, as to whether or not it was within the scope of duty.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. I yield.
Commissioner Alcaraz.
Two things. One, I know that the board will not be privy to the information of every case, but I would think that our county attorney should be able to get that, or should be told that information, because how else can we determine whether someone's being charged in a criminal manner or quasi-criminal or any other matter? I would think that we would have to know that information, number one. And my second question is, we're talking about the $50,000. I know we got a $25,000 deductible. So is this $50,000 plus the 25, or are we talking about $50,000 total?
I think as drafted, the 50 includes the 25. I think what you might consider is a higher limit, including the 25. I think that's something that the board might want to consider. And I think the chair's comments, reflected some thought about that. But I think, yes, as drafted, the 25 is included in the limit, which I think makes it even lower, because we're going to do the 25 in any event, as we do with all insurance policies.
But as going forward, to consider paying these legal fees, I think we should make it known that our county attorney must be provided with some information in regards to the case, so that we can make the determination in regards to the charges. Whether some may be part civil and some may be part criminal of someone being totally charged, but we need to know that information. I don't think that's something that should be held from our county attorney so that we can make sure that the county, if what we are paying for is indeed not against our policy.
Understood. I think in most cases, if someone is charged with criminal conduct, there will be an indictment or some other document that spells out the charges. So it'll be fairly straightforward to determine. Now, there may be some close cases, I can't think of any now, but there could be where you might need to get additional information, and certainly, the county attorney would be happy to seek that information. I don't think any prosecutor would obligate itself to provide information to the county attorney, but I think most of them probably would be cooperative with the county attorney and, try to help as much as they can to make that determination.
Okay. I yield, Chairman.
I think for the sake of the audience and the folks that live in Douglas County, that maybe you ought to understand that if it's criminal, if you're charged with a criminal offense, Douglas County Board of Commissioners will not pay your attorney fees. If it's civil, in the course of your duty where you're sued, Douglas County already has an insurance policy for that, and it normally covers whatever the attorney fees are and whatever judgment that the court hands out. What we're talking about, I believe, is what we would consider quasi-criminal, which I don't necessarily agree with that term, but that's a term that I've heard. But it's ethical violations where you go before the Bar Association if you're an attorney, maybe, or if you're a judge, you go before the JQC, and there's an insurance policy at this moment that pays $50,000 for that type of offense or that type of case, and that's pretty much what we're talking about. Is that right, Mr. Coleman?
Yes, I think that is the area where there has been an uncertainty in which the policy addresses. So I think I would agree with that.
Okay, so you understand. This is to limit that type of case and not to limit the other types of cases. Is that correct?
Correct.
It's kind of confusing.
I think that's correct.
So we have to determine if it's quasi-criminal. Again, I don't agree with that term. Ethical maybe would be the correct term. Then this proposal is to set a limit on what the county will pay up front, and once that limit's reached, if that person were found, I don't know if you'd call it not guilty, but if guilt wasn't applied, then we would consider paying all, or at least a very large portion of fees where that person was found to not be liable or innocent. Is that correct?
That's correct. Depending upon the limit that's ultimately decided, it would be a portion
Okay,
of that.
so that's what we're looking at, folks.
No.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to point out, in light of that, there is a provision in the same code which requires, in the case of what the code defines as a county officer, but it's basically a constitutional officer. In that instance, if there's a civil case where the county attorney has a conflict of interest which prevent them from representing that county officer, then upon the determination by the chief judge that there's such a conflict, then the county would be required to provide a defense.
Okay.
I did want to point that out.
I hope that helps everybody understand what we're talking about. Anybody else? Mr. Dobbs, you good?
Yes, sir, I'm good.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any other comments? Having none, do we need to go into executive session, Mr. Coleman?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to go into executive session very briefly with respect to a real estate matter and litigation matter.
Okay, we need a motion to go into executive session to discuss, I'm sorry, what?
Real estate
Real estate.
and litigation.
Okay,
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we go into executive session in regards to real estate and litigation.
I'll second.
Second.
Mr. Dobbs seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mr.
Right.
Chairman, I'd like to request that James Worthington join us with respect to the real estate matter at the beginning of the meeting.
And we need to adjourn this meeting as well.
We will now adjourn this meeting and move into executive sessions. Thank you all for coming.